Welcome back to Beyond the Blocks, where we go beyond the performances, beyond the times, and beyond the marks to bring you real conversations with the people helping shape the sport of track and field. I'm Coach Lonnie Davis, alongside Coach Will Humphreys and Anthony Lewis. Tonight, we've got a really good one for you. We're joined by Coach Rob Jarvis of the University of Arkansas. Coach Jarvis has coached elite jumpers and multi-athletes at the highest levels of the sport, developing conference champions, All-Americans, and athletes competing on some of the biggest stages in track and field. But tonight, we're not just talking about results. We're getting into the details that coaches love: movement patterns, rhythm, speed, elasticity, takeoff mechanics, and what actually separates elite jumpers from everybody else. If you're a coach, athlete, parent, or somebody that loves learning the sport at a deeper level, this is one of those conversations you're going to want to lock in for. Coach Jarvis, welcome to Beyond the Blocks.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it and looking forward to what we dive into tonight.
Awesome. So for our listeners, we're going to kind of be all over the place. We have one mission is to, give you guys a whole bunch of information. So we'll just start off with just, one question initially, and then we're just going to go from there. So Coach.
I'm sorry. Before we do that, Coach Jarvis, can you give us a little background as to like some of the athletes you've worked with and some of the accomplishments you've had as a coach, just so they can understand like who we're talking to?
Yeah, I apologize. I've been muting. My puppies are going crazy. Yeah, of course. So I'll work backwards just from the schools, and then I'll talk about some athletes. So I am just concluding my second year at Arkansas with the men's track and field program. It's been awesome. Coming off of SEC outdoor team title, we won the SEC indoor and NCAA indoor titles at home, which was great. So for me, that was a cool feather under my cap, just as like professional accomplishment, just being part of a NCAA Division I team title. The 7.5 years before that, I spent my time at the University of Miami, where I coached the men and women's jumps and combined events groups. Prior to that, spent 2 years. Miami. I was 2 years at UCLA, where I was director of ops, and I coached the horizontal jumps for the men's side. Prior to that, spent 2 years at IMG Academy with Lauren Seagrave, getting that high school team off the ground back. This was 2013 to 15. We could touch on that. And then before there, it was my first stop at UCLA, which I was there from 2010 to 2013 under Mike Maynard. I started my first few years coaching at Azusa Pacific, which is my alma mater. And then I think that's it as far as the stops I've made. Now, athletes, same thing. So I think the two that I will touch on that I'm known most for is the top U.S. triple jumper, Russell Robinson. He multi-time All-American national championship at Miami. My claim to fame with him is at a high school. Russ was all of a 24-1 long jumper, and I think he might have jumped 46 feet in triple jump. When he made the U.S. team for the Olympics for Paris, he jumped 17 meters 20, so that was 56 5-ish. So not a bad progression in that amount of time. He was a little upset. His long jump PB is 7 meters 99, so never quite had the 8 in front. But funny story about Russ is his last meet long jumping was the East Prelim in Kentucky back in 2024, and he didn't advance. And probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen is he literally took his long jump shoes off, put them in the trash can at the athlete tent, and just walked off the field. He's like, "I'm not doing this again." So that was him. On the women's side, one I'm known for is Michelle Atherley. She's the number 3 or 4 U.S. HEP in the country, multi-time World Championships qualifier, school record holder, national championships, multi-time All ACC national athlete, that sort of thing. As far as other athletes to note, developed a bunch of 16-meter long jumpers, triple jumpers, starting at UCLA. He's a professional dunker now. If you guys follow Jay Clark, the jumper, Jonathan Clark, I coached him his last year at UCLA. For me, that was my claim to fame. That was my first NCAA Division I final in Des Moines. He ended up 9th in that meet, but the reason that final is known as being the big one, a couple guys by the name of Christian Taylor and Will Clay both jumped over 17 to 15 in that meet. So watching those guys come down the runway and watching Coach Booth at Florida at the time was a little humbling to cut my teeth. So that was him. Another long jumper I had at UCLA, a guy named Isaiah Holmes. He's just like a 770 long jumper out of high school. Ended up jumping, I think, 780 high at UCLA, and then ultimately did a graduate transfer, and I had him for 2 years at Miami, where he ended up jumping 805, I believe, and 223 in the high jump, so almost 7'4". Trying to think who else. And then obviously at Arkansas right now, I have the phenom Scotty Vines. He was the gold medalist in under 20 in Peru a couple of years ago, where he jumped 225, so jumped 7'5". He jumped 229, 7'6" last year. Jumped 7'5" again this past indoors for third at NCAA. So hopefully, knock on wood, he does his thing at outdoors and helps the Razorbacks bring home another outdoor title. As far as other guys on the team, Henry Kiner, 8-meter plus jumper, 1680. A couple guys last year that moved on for some reasons. They ended up going to new homes. Same thing, jumping over 798 meters, 1680. So just have had a lot of 26-foot plus and 55-foot plus guys. And then, oh gosh, he'd be mad if I didn't talk about him. Gerard Hughes is on the team right now. He's a sophomore. He just jumped 785 at SEC champs last weekend for third place. He's a sophomore. So that's 25-9. So again, it's been a lot of fun working with the guys I've been working with. And then the last one is on the team right now is Abe Johnson. He jumped 1650. He was first team All-American inside, a little dinged up outside, but I'm blessed to work with the kids I'm getting to work with. So it's a lot of fun. It makes, I know I'm good at my job, but it just makes me look that much better having talented young men to lace them up, do their thing, and just get after it.
Coach, I feel like a lot of coaches have like their own things that they look for or they like. You know, some coaches might like, hey, when I look at athletes, I'm rather you be bouncy first. I can teach you the technical. And some other coaches like, hey, I'd rather you be very technical and I can teach you the rest. Like what do you look for in your athletes?
That's a great question. Oh my gosh, my dog. Sorry. So I'll go back to Russ. So quick story. It was his senior in high school. Amy Dean, my head coach at Miami, she was really big at us, obviously going to high school state meets. I'm sure you guys going to high school meets will see college coaches in the stands, some looking on their phones, some actually paying attention, and just kind of some just there to see what they can see. Russ came down and went foul, foul, foul. Each jump so he was an 11th grader. If the indicator words are correct, they're out at 26 feet. I'm like, I need to get that guy. And no one saw it. And it's one of those things where, and we can get to it later for the recruiting standpoint, where I think there's a lot of value in, to answer your question, for people like me to go out and see young men and young women move around to see if it's one, is that something I want to deal with? Two, is there upside? And three, I mean this from the most professional way, guys, and on the women's side, I recruit body types. And so Coach Dean used to joke with me, guys that haven't met me, I am all of 5'9". And so my entire group at Miami on the women's side, they were all taller than me. And Dean's like, you're doing it correctly. I mean, Will, you were there. You saw what we were working with, And so, so to answer your question, on the young lady side, definitely body types. Obviously the intangibles, can they move? What do they look like moving through phases? Can they sprint? Are they slow? Is it something that we think we can fix? On the guys' side, definitely how they move, definitely from the size standpoint, quickness, agility. This might be a weird one, but whenever I can get to meets and I can watch the warm-up area, I'll spend more time at the warm-up area watching what they're doing than I will watching them compete. Because I think there's a lot to be said of watching just how they move, body language. Are they dialed in? Are they doing things deliberately? Is coach there having to hold their hands? That's a whole other debate. But for me to answer your question, body types, how they move, speed.
That makes me think of something too. Like, so for the audience, Coach Jarvis and I met when he was at Miami, and he was recruiting my older daughter Megan.
Yep.
And Megan checks a lot of those boxes with the exception of height. So like, what stood out to make you recruit her since you didn't check that box off?
Right. I think you probably remember this from our conversations. She's just a smidge shorter than Michelle. but I felt like she was as wired as Michelle. For those of you that don't know Michelle Atherley, she's scored almost 6,500 points in the HEP. I'll go quick. She's run 1271 in the hurdles. She's high jumped 6 feet. She's thrown the shot put almost 14 meters, so 44 feet. She's run 23-1 in the 2. She's long jumped over 21 feet. She's thrown the javelin over 45 feet, and she's run 204 in the 800. And she's all of 5'6.5", 5'7". And so for me, what I saw in Megan was the same thing. Long levers. You could tell she needed to spend some time in the weight room, but those are those things that you can coach, right? Back to your question, where it's, I won't name the school, but if this person happens to watch it, he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. I got reamed out at New Balance indoors and also at Nike outdoors. Very talented young lady. And I complimented the coach that he did an exceptional job with her. She might have been 5'3" or 5'4". She had long jumped 19 feet, high jumped 5'6". It just fantastic marks. And he's like, well, I don't understand. She's going to score 5,600, 5,700 points. I'm like, no, that's good. Good on you. That doesn't help us as far as scoring points at the big meet. And he was so offended. The young lady, she took it pretty well. I think she understood. But it's one of those things where I hate to say this sounds arrogant. It's like, you guys should know, you guys do this a lot, even at the high school level and college level. There are very distinct levels to this game. And you can give kudos to coaches. They've done a phenomenal job. But if I see someone, and I'm sure you guys have taken the USATF and the Coach Association stuff, it's that if I can't get 1% out of them, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. You know what I mean? And then at the end of the day, my job's kind of dependent upon these many young women going out there and winning stuff. and that's for me, that's the reality of it, you know? And so, but to answer your question for Megan, I just saw the upside and just how wired she was. And, you know, obviously she's with my buddy Petros now doing really well. And obviously the rest is history, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Coach, I like how you mentioned what you look for in an athlete. But I'd like for you to touch base again on like what you look for in the warm-up area, because a lot of these young athletes that we coach, they we can tell them as high school coaches or private coaches or whatever, like people are always watching you and things like that. But I would love for them to hear from you as a coach at the highest level in college, in the SEC, like what you actually look for in the warm-up area.
Sure. I would please try to keep me on task. I think I would say there's 4 buckets.
Okay.
So first goes back to the first one I was saying, just watching them move, right? I mean, anyone can run, anyone can sort of do drills, but it's just seeing, okay, how did that A skip look? They were doing ankling or dribbles, like they call them now. How did that look? What did that A skip look like? Just watching just general movement patterns. And then from there, more often than not, for young boys and girls, they're going to be weak through the hips and core. So I call it the kind of Bambi effect. So it's just, if you see like they're tall but they're weak, you can fix that. If they're small and they're strong in stature, and you meet mom and dad might be all of 5'6", that might be your answer, right? So that's the one bucket. The second bucket is their attention to staying on task. I mean, obviously I'm not privy to look at what their warm-up sheet looks like. Are they warming up? Are they there just shooting the shit with their teammates? Are they people watching? Are they focused on what the task is at hand, right? Because it's like, I kind of joked before we started recording, you know, all of us around the same age. I remember showing up to Pasadena games, Arcadia, Mount Sac, where it's like, okay, I knew who these dudes were. I couldn't tell you from Adam what they looked like other than knowing what uniform was, right? Like the color. So I just feel, and we can go off on this later, I'm not a big fan of social media from a standpoint of, I think there are pros and cons, but kind of how we talked about before we started recording, and this would be a tangent. So think of the portal. How many posts have you guys seen right now? It's like, oh, hey, thank you, XYZ. I'm going to take these next 2 years. I'm going to hit the portal and this sort of thing. To me, it just, you're screaming for attention. Like they're paying your bills. Like you're still on you might be going national still for that team, but you're just paying. So that's a whole other thing. The other things I like looking at in the warm up is how I find recruiting now, they're a lot more coaches who actually know what they're doing. I say that respectfully. I think 10, 15 years ago, you go to a meet, you're like, holy cow, they're doing what? They're doing what, just picking up on things, right? So it's not so much on what the coaches are doing. It's the attentiveness of to being coachable, corrected, or just seeing what's overall going on. If I see some stuff that, hey, maybe they're doing something I don't agree with, but they're locked in with what coach is telling them, cool, they're coachable. So when I say I like watching the warm-ups, it's that sort of thing. And even for me, taking it back for me at practice, where I literally watch practice. Let me back up. So at Arkansas, on the days we lift, I'm in the weight room watching. I'm there. I'm not coaching them. I'm watching the strength coach. I'm watching what they're moving. That's going to tell me if what I have on the sheet of paper for the afternoon is going to work. I have to change something and I have to go from there. We get to practice. I watch the warm-up. Do they get to the training room? Do they do their prehab? Do they do the rehab? Do they do their activation type stuff? And so again, it's like, I feel like it's kind of what I alluded to before. It's in my best interest to make sure that the athlete's ready to go. Because if they're not, like, hey, coach, I'm feeling good. I'm like, hey, you know what? To me, those runs don't look so good. That your right side looks like this. Oh, well, you know what? I'm actually kind of feeling a little bit something in my gastroc. I'm feeling something. Okay, take your butt to the training room. You know what I mean? So it's, I just feel just from a visual standpoint, I'm a huge proponent of just watching it. That's how I was taught. So we might get to a little bit later, but like my three mentors are Rainer Ryder, Coach Spencer Taylor, Jeremy Fisher, Will Clay, Brendan Reese's coach, and Lauren Seagrave. Literally, they watch there and they watch anything. It's nothing to do with, as a control freak. It's just being an expert at your craft and making sure that you're, if you will, like the Ferraris, the Porsches, the McLarens are ready to go when you got to dial them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I actually glad that you spoke on that, because I do that now, like with my daughter's friends who play football, and even like my younger girls now. I just say, listen, like, it ain't a lot of it is to do what you do on the field, but a lot of these recruiters, they are just sitting in the stands and watching what you do on the sideline. So if you got your head down, or you're not, in there pumping up your team or sitting next to your coaches, like, they're reading that. They're reading the body language and stuff like that. Like, they're seeing that thing, because it all speaks on character and who you are. And then do they want what you're doing, with their current players? So I'm glad that you
that right there. And it's not even, and again, it's like, you don't want to judge someone on just one instance. If my dogs are loud, I'm sorry, I'll go upstairs. But if it's one of those instances where, yeah, it could be character, it could be attitude, but it's just, and you can tell a lot on body language and just how they interact with not only their peers, but with the people that are trying to help them, help coach them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People think long jump is simply sprinting fast and jumping far, but elite horizontal jumps are much more complex. So can you break down what actually happens biomechanically during those final 6 steps?
Ooh, how much time do we have? Okay, so all right. It's actually okay. It's the first part. Yes, I'm a huge proponent. So back to the recruiting thing. So I think through the conversation, I'll bring everything back to recruiting for me and not for the thing. I think you would be remiss as a coach if you just try to put someone out there to long jump because you thought they were strong or they thought they can get off the ground or that sort of thing. There's definitely a speed component to it. Hold on a second. Sorry. Okay. So as far as talking about a long jump approach. So for me, I've always looked at it from a recruiting standpoint, yes, you want someone that's fast. I'll always revert back to Russ, and he'll get mad for me for saying it. He asks me every single year, and I get scared to let him run it. He's begged me to run a 60 and 100 probably for the last 4 years, and I haven't let him because I don't know if he'd break 10.9, and he'd probably uppercut me right now if he was in the room with me. And we can get back to like takeoff losses, that sort of thing. Last year, I had the good fortune of getting to work with Kerry McLeod. He was the Arkansas alum. He moved back to Jamaica to be with family and whatnot. But on the flip side of it, he's a 10.3 100-meter guy that's jumped 850 something, right? So to answer your question, I like looking at the long jump approach, and even you can marry it to the triple jump approach to an extent. I'm a proponent of the 18-step run for the college kids. If they are actually elite, I'll let them bleed back to 20. But I think for the purpose of the discussion for the high school athletes, 14 might be it for a triple jumper because they might not be able to handle that speed. But I think a safe distance is 16 just for their audience. Whenever I say numbers, I say total steps. I don't speak pole vault where it's the however many it is on the one side. I like that. Okay. So for me, I always like setting up. So just use 18. So first 6 steps, push, accelerate out. You could debate. There's debates on walk in, skip in, run in, static start. That's a whole other thing. Middle six, I like thinking of their transitioning into max speed mechanics, turning over, actually getting up to speed. And then we can get to this later too, but I'm also a proponent of a 6-step check mark for the long and triple jump. I'm not a believer in the 4-step, and we can talk about that later. But for the last 6 steps out, there's literature and studies that suggest that. So for men, it's approximately 14 meters, so right around 46 feet. The body can start to steer at that distance out. So for me, to answer your question for those last 6, you're thinking, okay, I'm in the right spot. I'm getting ready to jump, and it's just turning it over in those last few steps to use what Mike Powell and Coach Huntington used to say. Those last 6 steps, we would think he would push into his penultimate, pull off of it, and pop off the board. And so I think I mentioned it in the question I sent to you guys, where if you are lucky or unlucky enough to see my practice videos, the runways look like a mess of tape, but there's a rhyme and a reason to it. So for me, it's weird. So any number that's a 5 or a 0, it's a long piece of tape across the runway, and every foot it's a short piece of tape. And at the penultimate, the 2-meter mark's the long one, and I have a mark at 180 and a mark at 220. We could talk about that later too if you want to talk about penultimates and stuff. But to answer your question, it's just the biggest mistake that a long jumper can do is run those 16, 18, 20 steps as if they're running a 60 or 100 meters, because by the time you get down there to take off for the board, there's no penultimate, and they're just running through a finish line, and that 10 out of 10 times they're going to jump, they're going to hit the stand, and they're going to Superman and sprawl forward because they've lost that takeoff angle and that trajectory. So I don't know if they answer that question for you, but for me, that's how I like to set up the long jump approach.
You in your notes, you put 6-step versus 4-step. Can you talk about the science behind that?
Yeah. So this is I'm going to get crucified for this. So I don't know if this is actually true. So I'm just going to say this is what I've heard, like most people have said. So the story behind the 4-step check actually came from Coach Tellez and Carl Lewis. I think it was either at the 84 games or in 88. Supposedly Carl was walking back after a jump, and he pointed on the ground where he thought, or Coach Tellez thought his 4 steps was, and everyone thought that was, oh my gosh, that's it. And so everyone started using a 4-step check. The 6-step came out. I could probably find the study and get it to you guys before you post it. But like I said, the literature suggests that anything past inside of 6 steps, the body's going to inherently steer. So if you take that plus or minus 12 feet from 45 into the high 30 or the low 30 range, you're going to start inherently steering. So for me, that's why I've always used the 6-step versus the 4. But you go to a track meet, I would say it's 80-20 on people using a 4-step versus a 6.
Okay.
So I do want to talk about the penultimate a little bit.
Sure.
So the mechanics of it gets discussed all the time in jumps, with coaching and whatnot. So if you had to explain it to a young coach, how would you describe the penultimate?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. So there's a couple different ways I explain it, how I relate it to my athletes. More often than not, you'll see, or people will hear or think that there needs to be this gross lowering step onto that penultimate before they move off of it into the takeoff. I don't know what the exact distance is. I probably should know this. The lowering of your center of mass onto that penultimate is minimal. It shouldn't be like you're getting stuck in the ground, that sort of thing. And I think you could argue, especially with younger athletes, if they really exaggerate that penultimate, not only are they hitting the brakes and just killing all that horizontal velocity, that eccentric load going onto that leg is not healthy for the hamstring, so hamstring, that sort of thing, and you can run into a whole litany of injuries. But the simplest way I like explaining it, I mean, it's pretty common. People have played basketball. I was terrible at it, but it's just think you're doing a layup. I mean, that's the overly simplifying way of doing it. But for me, one of the drills I like to do in the fall, I'm a big believer in a lot of 1-inch boxes. So it's just, I'm sure you've seen it, where there'll be a 1-inch box on the board, about a meter separation where the penultimate's at, and then a meter, and just teaching them how to, what I like to cue, I always say flat. when they come off the penultimate. Because like, if you don't want to be on your toe, you go pronated, goes toe heel, breaking, lose body position, not over your hips, and not able to hit that takeoff angle. So my 1Q is just think flat, and also too is teaching them in the fall, kind of going backwards just for X's and O's. I do a 14-week plus or minus lead-in in specific prep leading into indoors, where we start with anywhere from a 6 to 8 step jump. Obviously, the velocity from 6 to 8 steps isn't what it is once you get back to your full run, but it's just teaching the athletes of actually setting that up, moving off of it, and getting up off the ground. And I just think, again, that's just rehearsal from lower speeds, working your way all the way back to full blast.
When you talking about the penultimate and teaching it, when you use the 1-inch box, are you using 2 of them so it's up, down, and then back off the box?
Yeah, I prefer using the flat ground and then the 1-inch box to take off from. Okay. I've played with the 1-inch box where they can do it. I know a lot of people do like doing it because it gives that sensation of the high, low, high. But for me, I just prefer using one box. Triple jump, I love using 3-inch boxes and going high, low, and all that sort of thing. But for the long jump, I haven't played too much with it, but I know a lot of my peers, they do that.
I was asking for clarification because you were saying flat. So like, what is the flat? What, like, if I'm trying to visualize what you're saying?
So I would think if this foot is my penultimate and it's the ground, you never want to think heel toe and never want to think toe heel. It's just trying to think paw your foot, pawing down flat, moving off of it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So then one other thing, this came to mind. When I first met you, my daughter was doing all these different events, and one of them was triple jump. And she was good at triple jump, but she wasn't good. She was like one of the best in the state, but we didn't spend a lot of time on it. She had 0 second phase. And I know that's a problem with a lot of high school kids where they have like no second phase. So can you talk about that, how to help, high school coach help develop a kid's second phase in triple jump?
That's a hard one. And I think it's easier said than done because it's not natural to run full speed and take 2 jumps off the same leg. Same thing, kind of what I mentioned before. Even with my elite jumpers, I spend a lot of time in the fall on grass, just doing rudiment hops, jumps, bounds, that sort of thing. But to answer your question, my mentor, Coach Ryder, he would always say, if you think about it, when you're running through the takeoff and you run off the hop, when you get to the step, in your mind's eye, you want to think that step is stepping up 2 steps as if you're going to flight of stairs. And then when you go into the jump, 3. So it's almost like you're thinking up, versus throwing that foot out in front and hoping for the best. And the other thing I like to do with it too is I hate using the wicket. I know wickets is like a dirty word to me. I say mini hurdles still. So I really like using mini hurdles to control distances. So in some ways, even if you're doing something as simple as just alternating bounds or single leg bounds, rather than just having this go to wherever they feel like they might be able to get to, bring it into 15, 20, 30 centimeters, making sure they're getting good, flat, solid contacts and can move off of each one and then slowly progress it and open it up and open it out.
I like that.
I have a question in regards to triple jump. What do you look for those athletes that are in high school, and like how Will mentioned, athletes similar to Megan that doesn't really have that second phase? What could you recommend a high school coach do to try to open up that second phase?
To be honest, not trying to sidestep, it really depends on the athlete's skill level. And from my experience, it actually depends on like what other sports they played. One of the things I like reverting back to in the fall, and again, I know in college we have the luxury of having a full general prep and specific prep in the fall where they don't do anything else. I'm a really, 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 really big proponent of bounding in stadiums where it's teaching them to finish. Just backing up, because my point is, oftentimes when kids will bound, single leg bound, alternate bound, they're not finishing that swing leg to just even get close to parallel, let alone up that thigh high to where it's perpendicular to the ground. So I think oftentimes the athletes are so caught up on what's my next contact going to be, versus a ground contact, finish the swing, fill that pause, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, 8 steps, 9 steps, 10 steps, 11 steps, 12 steps, 13 steps, 14 steps, 15 steps, 16 steps, 17 steps, 18 steps, 19 steps, 20 steps, 21 steps, 22 steps, 23 steps, 24 steps, 25 steps, 26 steps, 27 steps, 28 steps, 29 steps, 30 steps, 31 steps, 32 steps, 33 steps, 34 steps, 35 steps, 36 steps, 37 steps, 38 steps, 39 steps, 40 steps, 41 steps, 42 steps, 43 steps, 44 steps, 45 steps, 46 steps, 47 steps, 48 steps, 49 steps, 50 steps, 51 steps, 52 steps, 53 steps, 54 steps, 55 steps, 56 steps, 57 steps, 58 steps, 59 steps, 60 steps, 61 steps, put that foot on the ground, hit that pause, and go up. I think it's more of a coordination issue versus a application issue.
Mm-hmm. If they were bounding, would you recommend they do bounds like 2 steps or 1 step?
Yeah. Well, again, it depends on the stadium. So that's the one. God, I can say it on here. The one thing I miss about UCLA, Drake Stadium. Those stairs were perfect. I want to say they were probably okay. I'm making fun of myself. I wear a size 9. I'm not proud of it, but a lot of my jumpers that had the 11s, 12s, 13s, they can make a full flat contact on the stair and not worry about stubbing their toe or not having a full foot contact on the stairs. So I think 1, it's important finding somewhere where you get a full foot contact. But 2, to answer your question, on the single legs, I like working just single contacts again, posterior, getting everything underneath you, that sort of thing. And as they get more proficient, then you can start to open it up a little bit. On the alternating bounds, I always like starting with at least 1, if not 2, because again, you get the full extension and you can work the proper mechanics as far as going into that. And then when you take that back down to flat ground, it's a good translation for just your traditional alternating bounds or a speed bound type situation, if that was something that you wanted to incorporate into your training day.
Cool.
So I want to kind of switch topics.
No, you're good. You're good.
A little bit, and I want to talk about this 5-year rule because there's a report about to open. So some people may think they got more eligibility, they do. Vice versa, we don't know. And then also, I think it's a big thing here in California of holdbacks, right? Holdbacks and when they graduate and stuff like that. So I would love for you to touch on this new 5-5 rule if it's helpful. Or it's not helpful. With that.
Okay, so I'll speak to what I know. So I'll take my razorback off my chest for a second and just speak to like what I've learned. So so on the front end, for those that aren't aware, the NCAA is debating legislation on how to have all student athletes now have just a 5-for-5 is the easiest way to think about it. What really spurred it, as you guys can imagine, it's the 6th, 7th, 8-year football players or basketball players that have played pro in Europe and those sort of things, and they found a judge that is sympathetic and might be an alumni to that school that's allowing them to play. So to bring it up, so here are the bullet points. So from what we've been told is that in the new 5-for-5 is the clock that all of us would have thought of starting is your clock now starts the day you graduate high school and matriculate that year. Or if you took what we would consider a gap year, it doesn't start at the end of the gap year. The clock starts as soon as you turn 19. So it really that's one, or that's 2 big ones, right? The second one that is safe, which I think we can agree is okay. Anything to do with the church mission, military service, or maternity or paternity leave, that's the only waiver that the NCAA will consider reviewing. And then they'll determine at that point when the respective 5-year clock starts. After that point, there's 2 camps right now, and we're not sure which way it's going to go. Are you going to get 5 years to compete for, or are you going to be able to lace them up for all 5? It sounds like from what we've been hearing, you're going to be able to lace them up for all 5. The caveat is that we think that there's going to be a lot of lawsuits like usual once this thing goes down, because I can get you guys the flow chart. That's not that's private. I'll get it to you guys, see if you want to put it into production for this. But basically what it's saying is that if you are a senior this year in college, but it's only your 4th year, and that means you didn't technically exhaust, you're going to be okay to come back for a 5th year next year. If you're in your 5th year right now and you exhausted, you're done. Then there's a third camp saying that even if you are in your 4th year and you have time on your clock, you're exhausting. So that's where the gray area is right now, if you will. The wild thing about it is that I don't know if you're familiar with it. Last year there was a Pavia waiver where any JUCO kid that spent 2 years, they got an extra year. We have 4 of those on our team right now. So what happens to them? And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before we started recording. We can all agree the kids during COVID got screwed just with the extra years and all the stuff that happened. I don't foresee it being as bad as that. But the thing to me that doesn't make sense, and again, above my pay grade, is that anyone who signs prior to the legislation going live will be grandfathered and under the old rules. Mm-hmm. And so if anyone's open to Barstool and ESPN or any other article, I won't name the school in the SEC, but there's a basketball coach who's causing a lot of waves by signing a lot of ineligible European basketball athletes and guys that had been drafted to the NBA that are going to file and sue for their eligibility. Mm-hmm. So
I gotta say, I'm sorry. You want to continue?
No. I mean that's the gist of it. So it's just so as of now, we have been told that we think that's going to be done by the end of summer, but I'm not going to hang my paycheck on it as far as what it's going to look like once it's all said and done.
I think personally, I'm sorry. Personally, I like it. I like the idea, and I'm really big on the age limits, like the fact that it caps out at 24, 25. I like that because I don't like the idea that our kids are graduating high school at 17 or 18, and having to compete against people that are coming from other countries that are coming over at 22 or 24 and being freshmen, and then being 28. There's a heptathlete in Division II that just won a national championship that's 30 years old, and it's like that's crazy that a 19-year-old has to compete against that person. I just don't think that's fair. So I would like some equity there.
Right. Yeah, it's a weird one, but I think it will clean up a lot of the waivers. And again, I'm sure there's the intent back in the day of like the blue shirts and gray shirts and all that other stuff had good intentions. And then lawyers got to litigate it and blew it all to smithereens. So
I just look at it as, if it is 5 years that, you have a strong possibility as an athlete to get your degree in 3 and then grad school. So, now you can totally be done with school within that, 5-year window if, taking it serious. So I think that's what I do like about it, but it's still a lot of confusion on like how it's going to play out and stuff like that. So, and who is going to benefit, current.
Well, and bringing it back to our sport, the wild one, and this is, I'm not trying to implicate anybody, but there's 2 instances now, one at Houston and now one at Georgia, where guys had signed full-blown contracts who've gone running and were reinstated, and so I mean, good on them, right? But we were joking, and I don't think I'll get in trouble for saying this. We were joking tongue in cheek with Coach Brauman, saying, "We're going to can we bring back Jordan Anthony just for the postseason?"
All right.
Like, what's the difference? You know what I mean? It's what's NIL versus a shoe contract, So obviously that didn't happen.
But speaking of so the 5 for 5. So some of the people, some of the positives I've heard people say is now coaches can start developing people because now you got 5 years and you can develop and you can look at recruiting differently and all that. And then, of course, we know that there's people that say there is no development in some of the bigger schools and some of the SEC schools and all that kind of stuff. So can you speak to that a little bit, like with your program?
Oh, I would love to. I would love to. So let me start with the nice before I get to the throwing arrows. So the challenging part, I don't know if people realize this across the country, even though the NCAA mandated that it was 45 for the cross, 45 for the track rosters and 17 for cross. The SEC took it upon itself to limit men's track at 35 and 10. So for us, and this is me playing my violin, it's really difficult for us now. I wouldn't say necessarily to develop young men, because obviously we're the only on the men's side, but it's actually building depth to our roster to where we can take chances on people. Because going back to my example on Russ, if I went to Coach Case, like, hey, Case, I saw this kid jump 25 feet a couple times, didn't count, but I really like to give him a scholarship. Oh, that's cool. What's he jumped? Oh, he's jumped 25-1 and 46 feet. There would never have been a chance for Russ to have a shot. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But to answer your question as far as development, That's a big debate. I think it's no secret that prior to me being here, now that I'm at Arkansas, we have had a lot of success from the portal, and that's just from either people that had been recruited here prior, went somewhere else, or other people that just want to, hey, I have one more year, let's give this a go. I want to go try to win a national championship. That's the whole thing. But I think where the word development gets thrown around and is lost on people is that, what is development? Is it the 1% taking someone that's elite to improve 1%? So I mean, like if that's someone that's run 10.0, you get them to run 9.9, that's pretty good. You know what I mean? It's I think people get confused where it's like, oh gosh, how come you're not giving the 2-minute flat boy a chance to go run 154? Hey, that's a good coaching job. That doesn't make an SEC final. You know what I mean? That's like no disrespect, but again, like I said before, there's levels to this thing. You know what I mean? And it's like when you're at the upper echelon, 1%, that's pretty freaking good. You get more than 1%. I mean, shoot, let me know what you guys are doing. You know what I mean? And so I think that's, to me, where that word is lost on some, where they just expect, okay, you're going to take an 11-1 high school boy and make him run 10-4. That's a hell of a job. But same thing, he might not make a relay team. And that's just the reality of it. And that's not even taking into consideration international kids that are coming in. So again, to me, that's I personally take exception to it, because I had a mentor tell me once upon a time when I was still a young coach, it's that once you finally make it, if you're getting negative recruited, you finally made it. And that's like the one thing for me where it's just like, oh, who's Jarvis coach? Who's in this? Who's in that? It's like, if you go back and look, a lot of 16-meter jumpers, but now it's crazy. 53.5 feet really isn't it anymore in the triple jump, And so it's just, what are you doing? Or it's taking the 25-footer. Now you got to make him a 26-footer. You know what I'm saying? So it's things along those lines. And then now, you read anything about the high jump's getting crazy. You know what I mean? And it's not even a shoe thing. You can debate we could have the shoe debate on everything else other than the jumps and the throws. Now people are jumping out of their minds, and those shoes are still the same, So there's a lot of ways we can go about it. But to answer your question, I think development is in the eye of the beholder. Just because if yes, we do get the best of the best, but if they're improving, then I think we're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify something real quick, because I know we didn't mention this, but you referenced it a couple of times for our audience at Arkansas. I didn't know this until you took the job there. So at Arkansas, the men's team and the women's team are separate with the coaches. Correct. So the coaches, like Jarvis is on the men's team, he doesn't coach any of the females, and vice versa. So that's why he's mentioned Michelle Atherley, but everyone else, and that was in Miami, but everyone else has been all the guys, because he only coaches the men.
Yeah, good catch. Yeah, and that's the thing that's also about here. Like Coach Chris Johnson, head coach on the women's side, Boogie is his assistant, and Elaine Chamoff, he's the jumps coach, and we work great with those guys. But it's like we wave at each other in the hallway, we dab each other up at meets, and that's about the extent of it, And it's one of those things where Arkansas has this huge identity. I mean, I could talk about it where. We won indoors, and they have like a flag raising ceremony because so Arkansas, fun fact, there's been 54 national championships that have been won to Arkansas, one being football, one being basketball, and 52 being track. And of those 52 of track, it's been men's championships. You know what I mean? So it's really cool. And I kind of joked about being from Los Angeles before we started getting going, where I'm walking around in LA, no one knows who the hell I am, but it's cool. Like walk through the hey, what's up, coach? What's your family think about Fayetteville? Hey, coach, nice meet. And I'm just like, awesome ego massage, but it's a cool vibe here. And I imagine it's much like that in Oregon, but it's like, people really care about their track and field here, which is, you wouldn't really think with Arkansas being a flyover state, what do you want to call it? But this whole northwest corner of Arkansas, it's a different planet. It's really cool.
Coach, you briefly mentioned like the scholarship numbers for cross country and for track. Conference by conference roster caps, scholarships. Who's not funded? Who's not fully funded? And the Olsen, in regards to scholarships for men and women, and now that there's roster caps, and what does it mean to you guys at Arkansas?
Ooh, okay, I'm trying to get myself in trouble. All right, so for those that aren't aware, this last year when they did the roster cap versus scholarship numbers, it's the school's prerogative to how many scholarships they want to give per team, right?
Okay.
But the thing that's still constant is Title IX. So no matter what, Title IX is still a thing. You still have to have equal representation as far as like 1-to-1 on the scholarships. What I'm allowed to say at Arkansas is that we are not fully funded, like our peers. So for us, meaning fully funded is we do not have 35 scholarships, and I'm allowed to say we're not really close to that. That's as far as I could say. But I know there are 3 or 4 peers in the conference who have 35. And I think if you look at recruiting and who's signing up people in multiple events, you could probably guess who those 4 schools are. And good on them. And we're just trying to figure out how we're going to refocus and just try to do what we do as far as running for team championships with the little bit disadvantage of the scholarship numbers. So we have the rosters, we have the roster spots, but it's just as far as fulls, that's where we're a little bit of deficiency.
So I would say my perception would be, or has been, that at Arkansas you got the Walmart family and this, that, and the other, that they're probably chipping in and giving you guys money to like help NIL the athletes and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that something you can speak on with regard to like are there athletes that might be partial but they can sort of to cover?
Yeah, what I can say is, and I think it's like what most schools do, up until last year, I wouldn't say it's the Wild West, but yeah, the NIL, I think, flowed a little more freely from what I've heard. But now with NIL Go, anything that has to do with the NIL opportunity has to go through that clearinghouse. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple extra steps that have to go. And obviously we can't recruit on NIL inducements. Mm-hmm. So that's that part. So that's that answer. But on the flip side of it, I can say there's a significant amount of guys on the team that do have NIL shoe deals that are pretty significant. Mm-hmm. And the Jordan Anthony one obviously being the anomaly. I mean, that one's public information, but yeah, we do have guys on the team with shoe deals.
Yeah, cool.
I'd like to just transfer us back into the training concept a little bit. Mm-hmm. You showed us, you shared with us a little bit of information in regards to the, microcycles and training mm-hmm. plans and things like that.
Sure.
How far out, so I know you're coming up on the end of this season. Mm-hmm. When do you start game planning for next year? Sometimes coaches we miss sometimes and things mm-hmm. like that. Are you already implementing your game plan for next year? Like when are you starting to build on that next cycle for the next season?
That's a great question. And when you guys do the post production, you can show it. So that first tab I sent on the annual plan, that's just like my map. Shows the weeks, mesocycles, microcycles, that sort of thing. For me, when I sign so let's talk about Scotty Vines. When we sign Scotty, oh my gosh, excuse me. I always set up as a quadrennial where, yes, it's a year to year, but I know each year I want to check a specific box, find some level of mastery in it, move on to the next year, check that box, continue to touch on what was before, and then grow on that. So by the time we get to year 4, and for Scotty, it'll be an Olympic year. Hopefully he's wearing that USA singlet when we're in Los Angeles. I know I was overly simplified, but to answer your question, yeah, like there's in the recruiting process, I really try to find what the perceived deficiencies are, if you will, per athlete, and then strategize how to address that during the year. And obviously, hopefully, we check those boxes during the year. There's going to be some forwards, some backwards, and like obviously with Scotty, he went from jumping 229 indoors, and I look like coach of the year, coaching him right all the way back down to 211 outside. You know what I mean? So it's just, there was just a lot of growing pains and just stuff we had to work through. But a testament to him and just his buy-in and his kudos to him, his club coach, Matt Hemingway, alumni from Arkansas. He's the highest jump record holder here. He jumped 230 outdoors. And then he was the silver medalist in the Athens games where he jumped, I think it was 238. So 7'9". So he's been a good friend to me. We collab on a lot of different stuff. And I think that's one thing for me, which is unusual. I'm sure you guys have dealt with people once they get to college. It's like, peace, see ya. for me, one of my first bosses, Mike Maynard, UCLA, quick story. He the first really good decathlete I got to coach is a guy by the name of Marcus Nielsen, multi-time All-American. He was the first deck I personally coached over 8,000 points. And he was the first athlete I coached to my first world championship. So he made the 2013 world championship team in Moscow, which a little bit scary, but it was with Sweden. So I wasn't rocking the stars and stripes. So it wasn't as bad. But the reason I say all that, when Mike let me coach Marcus, he's like, all right, Jarvis, this is your first one. If you really want to take it serious at this Division I game, you got to get guys to the meet. You got to get him to score. Then you got to go do it again the next year. And if you do this right from the jumps and combined events world, now you got to get a triple jumper to the meet. Then you got to get a high jumper to the meet. And my head, I'm like, oh shit, this is kind of crazy, right? And he's like, are you following what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, kind of. He's like, what I'm telling you is, don't crash the effing Ferrari. I'm like, all right, got it. Read you loud and clear. So, yeah, so that's kind of the tact I've taken on that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Hey, with regard to multis, like, so at Arkansas, no, Arkansas used to be known, like, obviously they still have and have always had their jumpers and sprinters. Yep. Jump specifically been great, well known. They used to be really heavy too with the decathletes. And I noticed that's something they've kind of gotten away from in the last couple of years. Is that have you guys moved away from that, or is that something you're going to get back into?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. So credits, you already had him on, Coach Geffert. He's always been cool to me. He's always been good to me, and I can tell that story too. But he and I are very like-minded, where I'm a huge believer, like, if you do it correctly, we can get it. And Will, you know this, I'm the type of coach where I take a team approach to coaching combined events. I'm there for everything, but I think I'd be doing the kids a disservice if they couldn't work with the expert in a respective thing. Like, I can coach the crap out of the jumps, I can coach the crap out of everything, but it's like, I'm not going to tell them they're not going to go with Coach Case, with Jordan Anthony, and the litany of hurdlers we have. You know what I mean? Or then other stuff in those sort of lines. So, but to your question, when I first came in, I inherited a group of 16 from Coach Geffy, and 6 of them were decathletes. The first thing Coach Bucknam said to me was, Jarvis, we're not having 16 athletes anymore, because we knew the roster caps were coming down the pipe. And so it was more of not so much attrition from subtraction. It was just not replacing guys from graduation. So right now in the group, we actually have one death on the team. It's Peyton Bear's little brother, Jackson Bear. He had an injury, so we redshirted him this year. And then I just signed the Canadian under-20 national record holder, Jackson McKay. So we'll have 2 8,000 plus guys next year. So to answer your question, we completely didn't get away from it. It was just happened to be that recruiting lull where we didn't know what we were going to be able to work with. And then now that we know we'll be able to work with, it was a little bit of whipsaw. And I think I got into little keyboard battles with people out on Facebook, just because if you guys didn't see, only 4 people started the decathlon at the SEC championship. So people thought they were going to lose their freaking minds. So that's a whole other thing. But no, but to answer your question, we're not getting away from it. It's just not having the 4 or 5. My sons are not having the 4 or 5 guys in the group anymore.
A couple of minutes ago, you mentioned finding some level of mastery.
Yep.
Could you dial in a little bit on that, like what that is for you or for your athletes, and what you're looking for in those when you want to check that box and say, hey, we found mastery, or we're just about there?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take it backwards a little bit more. Let's use the long jump or triple jump approach. For me, let me take it even more detailed. So for me, my Monday is much like the country's. It's an acceleration development day. So we do a lot of, I call them contrast pulls. So for example, after they warm up, we'll do our multi-jumps, multi-throws, hurdle hops. That's so they then get the body woken up, standing long, standing triples. I'll do one set of 3 by 20 resisted pulls with the Dynasty or 1080, whatever everyone have. And we go old school. We use the sled from time to time. You don't need to have a super expensive device to get the same job done. Going back to what I was saying before and watching everything, if I see those 3 pulls look good, then they'll move on to 3 by 20 accelerations, either from a 10-point or their walk-in, whatever their strategy is on the runway. If that looks good, I put them on the runway. Once we get to the runway in practice, just kind of getting a little bit ahead. We talked about all the tape I have on the ground and that whole sort of thing. For each respective athletes, they have a 6-step, what I call an athlete check. I got it from Coach Poole, Jimmy Fisher, level 2, whatever you do for jumps, where they'll have either a shoe, a cone, or something on the ground, just in their peripheral. Not that I want them looking down, but have an idea where that's at. I have my check, depending on the athlete. If it's a guy, it's going to be somewhere between 44 to 46 feet. And then there's the 2-meter penultimate line, and there's the board. Getting to your question, I like them to do anywhere from 3, 4 at the most, just because we can get back to it too from a training philosophy. On the hard CNS days, I don't like my guys doing more than 9 runs, 12 on the long end, just from a whole intensity, volume, that standpoint. We can go back to that too if you want to get to that. But if in those 3 runs, and this takes another tangent, is that you guys are familiar with how it works for NCAA's preliminary rounds? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay, so I hammer in from the first freaking day we get on the runway. You got freaking 3 runs. The shit's not right, you're not advancing. If it's not on, it's bad, right? So when I watch video, and we review, I have video review every Wednesday in my office. When they pan, so let's use the left foot jumper. They walk in, they go, where was that foot on their check? Where was that foot on my check? Where was their penultimate? Where were they on the board? And so to me, yes, there's going to be a little bit of subjectivity as far as like, did they push out well? What did they do? Like the things of the run. But I can tell you where you were on your check, where you were on my check, where you were on the penultimate, and where you were on the board. And so for this exercise, for coaches that aren't familiar with this, so take the athlete check out of it. If the athlete's on my check, they hit their penultimate, they hit the board, we're good, right? Mm-hmm. If the athlete is outside their check, outside their penultimate, and foul, what'd they do? They got big, right? They steered to get big deep to the runway. Mm-hmm. If they were over my check, on the penultimate, and barely caught the board, they're steering and slowing down to try to get everything in, right? So the reason I say all that is there's a lot more information to be had. Whereas if you take that tape off the runway, I watch it with my eyes. That's the artful side of coaching. I probably know what's going on. I use the tape more for a tool for the athletes, but look, this might have been what you're feeling, but where you can see where your steps are, your body position is at, and what's happening when you leave the ground, these are the contributing factors to why that jump was good or bad. So for me, that answers. So to answer your question, if they can come down 3 times and 2 out of the 3 are good in the fall, I'm cool with that. We start getting to indoors and then we start doing 4 to 6. I want 4 of them to be pretty good. And same thing as we get closer. Then now I cut it right back down to 3 and my guys are getting pissed. They're like, Coach, I need another run. Sorry, meet's over. You're going home. Top 12 is in Oregon. You won't be there. And they get mad. And it's one of those things where I'm very blessed that the group that's always locked in. But sometimes as a coach, I hate being the D word, but it's really forcing my look like, hey, I don't mind you grinding, working through some stuff, but when I tell you there's 3, this is what it is. Take your shit off. Practice is over. And
I like that. I was gonna say I specifically didn't answer your first question when you were asking because I didn't know if you were saying they were in front of or behind their first mark.
Oh, gotcha.
But no, I like that because you're like forcing them to be intentional at practice, which they have to carry that over into the meet. So I like drilling that in. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing too, for those that use iPads or even Dartfish or other stuff, even when we're doing short approach jumps, I measure everything from double doubles, standing triples, long jumps. If people that don't know, in the video function on an iPad or iPhone, if you swipe up, there's a note function and you can write it in there. So I always put the distances in there just so I know when I go back and look at another time what it was. Just for I'm huge on data points and analytics and stuff. So it's nice to have stuff like that.
Now, when you mentioned Yeah. I heard you say that, so I'm going to ask if y'all have this because I feel like this is old. The Dynaspeed. You guys actually have that in campus?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and still use it?
Well, what do you mean by Dynaspeed?
But no, I mean the device, the overspeed and resistance.
Yeah.
But you guys got 1080s as well, though.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard you say that. I was like, I didn't even know I didn't know teams were still using that.
Yeah, because I mean, to be honest, I like the Dynaspeed better. I know the 1080s come out with like the new models. For those that don't know, the guys that made the Dynaspeed were the spin-offs from the guys that made the 1080, and to kind of get in the weeds of it. I don't know. Can you hear the dogs this time? Sorry, they're going berserk.
Nope. Don't hear anything.
All right, cool. I'll just read through it. So, what I like about the 1080 versus the Dynaspeed, both amazing devices, both awesome for resistance assisted. The reason I would give the nod to the Dynaspeed is two reasons. One, you can actually dial up or dial down in 10-meter increments on the Dynaspeed. So, for example, if you're doing 30-meter pulls at, say, 8 kilos of resistance, say you have an athlete where from 10 to 19 meters, they get stuck on something. You can lighten the load, you can increase the load, and then you can dial it back up or down from 20 to 29 and so on and so forth all the way down. That's one cool thing. So you can see on the force velocity curve when it goes, whatever decrement that's working at, it can show you that whole sort of thing. The other reason why I'm a proponent, why I prefer the Dynaspeed, not only can you use the laser to get the actual velocities going on when they're running away, you can get it as they're coming towards you on a runway. So you have it at the other side of the sand, you can point it, you can get everything going at you. And then the real reason why I really like it, the force plates that you can get that pair with it give you a lot of data as far as not only just force application and all those other good things, but just if there's asymmetries or deficiencies on one side or the other, and just simple injury prevention, just and that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's good that you said that, the injury prevention, because I know like now, like my daughter, she's out in Texas training, and they're using the force plates and stuff like to test, like, okay, the measurements on the hamstrings and stuff like that to say, okay, do we need to even be working out today or something like that? So
right,
Yep. How much of a, for lack of better words, are you a geek for like the times and the data in the testing? Like I know you showed a lot of the information in regards to the testing, especially like for jumps and things like that. But like, how often do you test, say for instance, fly 10 or fly 30s and things like that? And what are you looking for in those progressions? Like how aggressively are you trying to get them fast? Because faster, because I've heard of some coaches trying to manage speed. So, because it's been a thing that, especially recently, where people are talking about getting athletes too fast. Do you believe that in that concept, or are you one that just says, hey, let's continue to progress and get faster and faster and faster? But
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. So okay. I'll give the answer for it. So for me, the only data that I'm married to is that sheet. I think it was the third one. It's where it says the energy systems.
Okay.
If there's anything I can convey to your listeners, memorize that chart. Understand what it means, and actually know what the volumes versus intensities and that sort of thing is. Because, for example, if we're doing a intensive tempo day, right? You want to keep it in that specific range. But say you're doing an intensive tempo workout with a 400-meter runner who's run 45.0. Say you throw a little Johnny in there who's run all of 39 seconds. You're taking it to a whole other area and a whole different energy system. And you're probably going to blow that kid up trying to run what's prescribed for somebody else. So that's one little example. Sorry, what was the other part of the question? Oh, and then married to the numbers. So I formally test 3 times a year. It'll be after the first, my baseline testing is always 4 weeks after we start the fall training, just baseline, just seeing where everyone's at. And that's as simple as just a standing long, a standing triple, a back overhead, with the 4 kilo. I only do it with a 4 kilo shot in the fall. And then I do not do a timed run for the first one, just because we're not ready for any of that stuff yet.
Okay.
The second test I'll do is usually right around fall break, which you're plus or minus 8 weeks into there. So I just call it mid general prep testing. And that's the full blown standing long, standing triple for the triple jumpers. I'm a huge proponent of a double double. If you guys don't know what that is, it's the from a standing long jump. It's you want 2 of your preferred legs, so it'd be jump, hop, hop, step, step, land. And to me, I can give you tons of data on if you jump this, you should be able to jump that. And I can get you guys that. And then I don't intentionally test a lot during the year that the athletes know, but I always have, for the people out there that don't want to spend 17K on a 1080 or a Dynaspeed, I live and breathe by a Brower system. I still use Browers 2 days a week. I'm not a big fan of a free lap. Just don't like it. I'm not a fan, but I have the infrared start and I have 4 sets of beams. I'll set them up on the runways. I'll send them everywhere and I get data points everywhere under the sun with the Browers. I just feel like you can get a lot of data from that for not having to spend a lot of money. And I live and die by that. But to answer your question, as far as being married to the numbers, I wouldn't say that I necessarily get married to the numbers, but I can tell you that for certain events, if athletes are doing certain things, they're going to be in a specific range of what you're hoping to get to. And then there's other times where he'll get mad at me saying this. So for example, Kerry, he worked with us last year. He's a world-class long jumper. I think he might jump 3 meters 5, 3 meters 10 in a standing long jump, which makes 0 sense for how fast he is. But but he goes and standing triple jumps almost 11 meters. You know what I mean? So it's just different guys do different things, and it's that along those lines. But so I'm hesitant to say the numbers and the testing are end all be all, but I think they're good indicators as far as, one, is your training going in the right direction? And then we haven't even talked about it yet. 2, is it married with what you're doing in the weight room and how are the numbers looking in the weight room and that sort of thing, So for us at Arkansas, we're blessed. Our strength coach, his name is Steve Strobus. And at Arkansas, for those that don't know, we have our own weight room, our own training room, our own trainers. It's ours. We don't share with anybody. And the great thing about Strobus is he's probably one of the first strength coaches I've worked with where it's a collaboration. We tell him what we want. He doesn't go off script. If he has a question or if he sees something, he's like, hey, what do you guys think about changing this? And it's been an awesome 2 years so far. And I hope he doesn't go anywhere. He's awesome. He's awesome. And he works really well with Coach Case and I. And I think he has the same relationship with the Johnson brothers in that he truly does understand track and field. He was mentored at Kentucky by Coach Hall before he went to South Carolina. So he was around some good folks when he was there. So we lucked out.
I got a question on something. I'm going to change the subject a little bit. We were talking, as you mentioned before we started rolling. So I'm not sure if we covered this already since we've been recording, but I don't believe so.
Sure.
But we were talking about the transfer portal because as the time of us recording this, the transfer portal is about to open in a few days.
Yes.
It'll be out by the time it airs. So with regard to the transfer portal, can you talk about what you've seen in the last couple of years with that and how, and it's not specific to Arkansas,
sure,
but just in general, how that's changed college recruiting. What can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely a lot of pros and cons, and I think depending upon where one is at will dictate if they're more for or against it. For me personally, even from Miami to Arkansas, I think there's a lot of pros to it in the sense where take the competitive part out of it, take the people tampering and all the other stuff that everyone knows is going on. I think Coach Calipari said it, where I think to be used correctly, if someone's allowed a one-time transfer, just because maybe they made the decision, I think that's cool. I think where it's going sideways right now, but I believe it's going to get fixed with the NIL Go. People just can't jump ship for another paycheck. And I know it's more prevalent in football and basketball, but I read a statistic or an article the other day saying that 60% of the people that jumped in the portal for Division II and Division III football were forced to retire because they couldn't find a new home.
Right. Yeah.
And so, to that point, I would say, within the letter of the law, the transfer portal can be scary because if you don't have something set up, you're basically giving away what you have, right? But I mean, it's no secret that club coaches are going to reach out, parents are going to reach out, that whole sort of things reach out. And like I can say specifically for us, when that happens, we're like, look, we're not trying to get in anyone else's business. If people are in there and we want them, we're going to go after them. But other than that, that's about all we're going to speak to it. Just because, again, that's just not how we roll out, how Coach Case rolls. It's just not what we want to be known for as a program. You know what I mean? Because it's hard enough for everyone's like, oh my gosh, Arkansas just gets the pick of the litter, which there is some truth to that. But at the same time, too, we do our best to do it the right way. You know what I mean? We don't want to go and freaking cut people in like that sort of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. To your point about the numbers too, like we don't have access, but only the college coaches have access to actually see who's in the portal. But I know I was like on another podcast, the LLC Athletics LLC podcast. They were talking about this last year. They were looking, and at one point, this was all sports. Actually, I don't remember the numbers from all sports to track, but I know at one point there was like 2,000 people. That might have just been track, or it might have been. Yeah, 2,000. Oh, yeah.
You want to bear with me? I'll log in right now. I'll tell you right now. Right, cool. Keep talking. I'll tell you.
It was in like, I don't know the proper word I want to use, but a ridiculous amount of, males and females in the portal, disproportionate to the opportunities available. So it's just like, just like crazy that all these people were jumping in when there's no way they were going to find a home. And a lot of them were just giving up their education, chasing a dream that was like not going to happen.
Yeah, all right. I'm logging.
It blew my mind when I heard the numbers.
So you can't see my screen, but you'll laugh. And this is just me for those that know my stupid sense of humor. It's called the waiver wire in my bookmarks.
Okay.
Waiver. Hold on one second. I like it. Well, it got to send me a code. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, it's emailed. Hey, Jax. We'll say hi to everybody. 1 second. 198 659.
They were looking at.
Jackson, can we say hi? Let's say hi to everybody real quick. Here's Jackson little cameo. Say hi.
Hey.
Say hi.
What's up, man?
This is my little mini me. He turns 4 in October. All right, Bob. Go see with Bobby.
What's his standing long jump, coach?
He can make the sand better than his daddy, so I can tell you that much. Let's see. Okay, so transfer portal. So the one thing we can't see are our athletes in, but to my knowledge, we don't have anybody in the portal. Yeah. What sport do you guys want to know, or just in general?
Track and field.
So the track portal opens up next week.
Oh, it's not open.
Yeah, exactly, Thursday. Yeah. So,
but we could see grads. It's all there are as of now. Good Lord, that can't be right. Hold on. Oops. All right, in the 25-26 class, there are already 1,355 entries.
And these are graduate students who have maybe one more year of eligibility.
No, I'm looking at these. These are not all grad. It's mostly D2 and D3, because D2 and D3 can get in because their championship was last weekend.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like the majority of these, it's D2 and D3.
Is that combined genders or just one gender?
No, that's men. So let me go girls real quick. Women, there are... Whoa. Oh, I read wrong. Got any glasses? 1,100.
Okay. Can you take a look? I know we're all going off on a serious tangent. Can you look at say men's basketball and football?
Oh yeah. That's my favorite ones to look at.
They're open. Mm-hmm.
Men's basketball is at all divisions 5,300.
Mm-hmm.
Division 1. There are 2,700.
That's crazy. So, matter of fact, this is a perfect opportunity. So, as a college coach who's already like, you know, in the system, not even, again, not at your school, but just in college schools in general, when you see stuff like this, what can you say to a parent of a child or a child who is considering jumping into the portal and jumping into this mess? Like, you know, I don't know, like say they're 1 year in. Talk to the people who are 1 year into their new school. Talk to the people who are 2 to 3 years in.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways to go about it. I think I'm big on communication. I think there should always be a conversation with the coach, right? It's just what is causing the student athlete not to be happy? What is the student athlete feeling that they're not getting? Because I think oftentimes, even at our level, the kids are thinking, gosh, why aren't I getting this? It's like, well, that's really not a thing, you know? And so that's one. Number two, if they're actually in a bad situation, that's a tough one, right? Because it's just like, then it's just you're at the mercy of your own well-being, mental health, that sort of thing. Or not a lot of people have the socioeconomic background, like, hey, mom and dad, I need you to pay for my school now. You know what I mean? There's different financial implications that go along with it. So I know that really doesn't answer your question, but to me, I think a lot of people are getting inadvertently burned by their own actions just because they think the grass is greener somewhere else, and it's not.
Yeah,
it's really not.
And that's kind of what I wanted to get to. Like my own child went to a school, was not a good situation, left, and is great now. But she was really, really good, and we knew there would be offers, which there were an abundance of. But there are athletes who go and aren't doing well, and you know, numbers are worse, and they might be 2 years in, 3 years in, and the numbers are going boom, 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 boom. Yet they jump in the portal, and I'm like, that's crazy to me. Like I don't know. It's like, to me, it's such a big chance they're taking, because if they're getting their education paid for at that point, they might want to just deal with it. But if they jump in, they may never compete again. They may not finish their education.
Right.
So
and you're lowering your own stock too. Because like you said, if you're not lighting it up, that's a hard thing to do. And I mean this in a complimentary way to coaches, is that, let me back up. If I was still at Miami, and it happened to me a few times where people made inroads to some of my people, I was complimented, but then at the same time too, I'm like, crap, this is, how am I going to make my next step if I'm not able to show what I'm able to do as a professional? You know what I mean? So I know that's me being selfish, but then at the same time too, for the athletes, even like when we're recruiting right now, if I could show you guys our recruiting board of who we're turning away, it would blow people's minds. And it's like, and it's not even us being aloof or arrogant. It's we don't have a full allotment of scholarships, and there's not a lot of 10-0 and 20, 60 kids are going to want to walk on just because they want to win a championship. I mean, some might want to do that, but I think times of that are long gone. You know what I mean? Especially when there's money out there to be made, you know?
Absolutely.
This is more on the high school side, because there's a lot of high school coaches that really don't have the resources or, you know, basically the resources to build a real jumps program. So if you were to take over a high school jumps program or jumps group tomorrow with limited facilities and limited time, what would be your top priorities?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think for sure the first thing would be is just a proper place to practice. Not necessarily have to jump everything, but just a facility where, you know, you can at least sprint, and hopefully there's a pit, right? Second would be, if I had the means to do it. I know there's people out there that are in personal training, or know people that do have personal training facilities where they lay down 20, 30, 40 meters of Mondo on an elevated surface and just build a sandbox. You know what I mean? I just think if that was the case, you'd have to get a little bit creative. But to answer your question, the most important thing would be is a track I'd be welcomed at, just to be able to train people at.
Do you, how do you feel about, you know, ground contacts with high school athletes? Do you feel like coaches don't give their athletes enough? Do you feel like they give them too much? Should they work more on bounding or ankling and things like that?
Yeah. No, when you say contacts, is that combined like spintrals, plyos, that whole sort of thing? Yeah. I again, that's a hard one because it really depends on training age, skill level, that sort of thing. I feel like I run into more. They do a little bit too much volume based on like their skill level, and then that runs into, oh, hey coach, I've always had shin splints, or I've had stress reactions, or God forbid they have a navicular injury or another like bone type thing. But luckily for me, in my experience, I've really lucked out making good contacts with like the more lesser known jumps club people in the country. And I mean, you guys probably think the big cities where people go to. And I'll be honest too, there are clubs that I will avoid just because I know history of what has happened to previous athletes that they've had.
Speaking of the high school athletes, so we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier with regard to social media and your thoughts on social media, but you also mentioned how it's important for you to actually see the athlete and see them move. So if you can't see them move in person, can you speak on how important it is to actually see the athletes posting on their social media their jump attempts, their high jumps, their sprinting, just so you can see mechanically how they move?
Yeah, no, I there definitely is value to it, and I probably spoke a little bit too over the top. My gripe with social media is I feel like a lot of these kids, that becomes their identity when that's really not them, and they're trying to put something out there that also isn't them. And then if they don't live up to what that false expectation is, it's like the end of the world. So for me, that's my soapbox. That's why I'm not a big fan of it. But to your point, no, there's tons of value in seeing videos on social and just what they post. And put this out there too, especially for the parents. We look to see what else they post. Who do you follow? What do your stories look like? What do you know what I'm saying? Like there's more layers to that you can control, that sometimes coaches don't want to deal with it. Like, I know TikTok's a big thing. I still don't have TikTok, but our kids will be like, oh, hey coach, you know that kid you're recruiting? Yeah. Oh, check this out. And we're just like, okay, well, that guy just fell down the list a little bit. You know what I mean? So there's a saying I always say to my athletes, and this sounds terrible, but it's like my threshold for bullshit increases based off of their finish at nationals. As long as they're not doing something stupid or illegal or getting thrown in jail, I'll tolerate a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you'd hope that line levels out a little bit as they mature and realize that, okay, this has consequences beyond just track and university. This is life type stuff that'll affect me long term. But yeah, and people will tell you stuff on the internet then get erased. So really, 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 really be cautious of what you post. And I actually just learned something too, because for me, I have for full disclosure, I love comedians, love Chappelle, I like dark comedy type stuff. One of the kids told me, it's like, hey coach, I just saw this thing you liked. I can't believe you liked it. I'm like, ooh. So even stuff like that, where you don't realize what you like and just your digital fingerprint on stuff, I had no idea people could see what I like. You know what I mean? So it's just, anyway, just stuff you really don't think about on stuff like that.
Anybody who follows you knows you have a dark sense of humor.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny you say that, because like I think I was just recently telling one of my friends that it's actually a guy out there who he literally goes to people's profiles and kind of see what they comments or they like. If it's something bad, like he literally exposes them. He'll find their LinkedIn, everything like that, and their job and stuff like that. So I tell even my own kids, like, hey, you got to be careful of what you post and what you like or what you say, because it can definitely come back, and bite you. Not even right now, but 10, 12 years from now, you hear the stories all the time of something somebody posted 13 years ago. They're not even nothing like that, but they said it.
Right.
Just so,
yeah, one of me and Lonnie's big gripes with the social media for the kids are the kids that have a profile and you can't tell their name or like because they're using something else, or they just have 0 posts. So it's like, how the heck are you going to help yourself get recruited, help your family, get your school paid for, if nobody can find you, or you don't have anything to even show you're an athlete?
That's a great segue, and you can like clip this part. If you have on your social media, send it to either your athletic.net and having your links to your mile split, one of those two, your actual full name, or if it's not, have it in those links. And if and when you send an email, dissertations are bad. Literally, all I want to see is first name, last name, class, PBs. And if you want to give a little bit of snippet, that's great. Because if you just see this and you see a whole wall of text and I don't see what you've done or what you've accomplished, I hate to say it, like we try to respond to everybody, like even like with the thanks but no thanks, but just save us some time and try to put yourself on there and what you've done. And it's just one of those things too. It's that make sure what mark you put's legit, or if you put like, hey, here's my mile split link, thank you. You know what I mean? It saves me 10 minutes of trying to figure out how to spell your name or what your last name is or what your social media, like you said, the no post ones drive me crazy because it's like, is it a lot? Is this real or what is it? Yeah.
I got a recommendation too for anyone who sends a coach an email. So with Megan, like what we did is we'll try to, so try to find whatever your best highlight is for whatever you've done, your best highlight. So we send an email out to coaches the fall of her junior year, like, before the season started. And it was, so we said, as a sophomore, she was a state runner-up in high jump. So we said, California state high jump runner-up, prospective recruiter, whatever. And it was like, this is me. Here's my, my mile split. I've done that. This is what I've accomplished. These are my numbers from last year as a sophomore. These are my goals for my junior year. I would appreciate if you could follow me and consider me as a recruit.
Yep.
And then she went crazy her junior year, and the rest was history. But whatever your best achievement is, start with that in the headline or something similar to get their attention, just to open it up.
Be different, because all we get, it's just like interested in Arkansas, interested in this, and like if there's no data, it's tough. It's tough.
Coach, was there any other topics or information you want to share with us? Because you're a wealth of information.
True.
I don't. You said true.
No, I said sure. Whatever.
No, you are. You are.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to make sure. It was anything else that you wanted to get out there and put out there.
Yeah. Let me see what I sent you guys. Hold on a second. On that, do you mind take a quick pause? Let me get a glass of water.
Go ahead.
And then let me do that. Cool.
All right, Coach. So, can you take us through a training plan, perhaps maybe like for a microcycle or a cycle that starts, in the fall and guides us through, the indoor season into the outdoor season, and then also how you tighten it up a bit going into the championship season?
Yeah, of course. Yes, so I forwarded you guys, I'm sure it'll pop up on here at some point, but the annual plan map that I've used, this has been my template since I've started coaching at the Division I level. Quick math, depending on if a school's on quarters or just a traditional semester system, the whole year is going to last you around plus or minus 40 weeks. So if you end up, for me, I do 4-week mesocycles. It makes it nice and simple. To where you have 10 mesos and then it's the end of the year and everything's all great. But I'm sure, as you guys all know, stuff happens during the years. You have to adapt and that whole sort of thing. But I can just walk you through this. So the map I sent you guys, that's just the map I use for my horizontal jumpers. And actually for my whole jumps group other than the combined events group. So if you just look at it, if you have it on the screen, the vertical lines, they designate each respective microcycle. You can see at Arkansas, leading into September, we start school the 3rd week in August. So those 3 weeks, I just have an X. It's just an intro to the weight room with Coach Strobus. He just teaches them the real rudimentary stuff in the weight room. And also at that point too, for our incoming freshmen, they go through all their diagnostic testing. Coach Strobus sees what the proficiency levels are in the weight room. And at that point, if they know how to lift, he'll let them go with the vets. If they don't, for those freshmen are kept with Coach Strobus, I believe, for the whole part of general prep, which is that first 8 weeks. So just make sure everything's safe, not trying to let anybody run before they can walk. Because again, at the end of the day, we got to get to week 40. We're not going to win anything in September. You know what I mean? And if Coach Strobus was on or Coach Case, we're all huge proponents of just like tendon, ligament, strength, all that sort of stuff. So just really taking it from the basics and then obviously building as we go through the fall. If you click on that second tab, it's what I alluded to earlier, the energy system chart. Gary Winkler, he came up with that, and I'm sure other people contributed to it way back when. But I live and die by that chart. You talk to most coaches, at least my contemporaries and my peers, this is our Bible, if you will. For me, as a combined events coach, I train my decathletes on the low end volume of the 400 column. If you want to talk about the combined events at some point in this, we can talk about that later, Will. But for me, I train all my decks on the low end volume of the 400 runners, and I train all my horizontal jumpers in that 100-meter range, depending on what their skill level. I'll take them through that. And so I won't get too detailed with it, but you can just see from everything from anaerobic, aerobic, lactate, anaerobic, lactic, special endurance, all that stuff's there. And you can just work it through the gears for the season. The cool tab on here, I don't mind sharing. I think this is available if you take the USATF level 2 course. This is a pretty cool chart. I won't get too much in the weeds on it, but this is for Gerard to use the long jumper I was talking about earlier. Part of the testing we do 30-meter fly testing. I believe he ran a little bit faster than 285, but for the purpose of this right now, I'm just going to leave it as 285. If you look on column G, row 3, you can type in what your hopeful improvement is for the year. And then at that point, obviously, we were trying for a 1% increment. It will spit out all that data throughout the rest of the chart. So if you want to play with it, all right, let's take, for example, do you get one of your guys' athletes 30-meter fly times off the top of your head?
Say if it's 296.
All right, so 296. So if I type in 296 and you type it all in through there, it'll give you the projected times on that right-hand side. I've found this chart to be true with everything up to the 800 for high-level college athletes to elite-level collegiate athletes. It usually shows their range. Once upon a time, I used to run, I have to type it in. I used to run, my best fly was 292. My best 100 was 1052. I ran 2115 and 4750. So it's weird how that stuff comes out. I don't know who made it. USA Biomech read it, but you can look all the way through. All those numbers give you specific times. You can play around with it and you can dig into those weeds later. The fourth tab is Mr. Bushexnader, my other mentor, the accepted standards for track and field testing. I will preface this by saying high school athletes will have a difficult time on this one. This is more catered towards your collegiate and elite level athletes. But same thing you guys asked me before, if I live in the numbers and testing stuff. I am a huge believer in these will give you a very good idea on if your athletes are going to make it or not. I could use Russ for an example. He weighs, I think, 155 pounds, and he can clean well over 300 pounds. He can squat like deep. He can do 2.5 times his body weight. His strength to weight it's crazy. In the double category, he's doubled over 19 meters. And so it's just one of those things where different events translate to different things, but these are good indicators as far as just what you want to look for as far as testing. So to answer your question, when I do test, this is kind of like the carrot I like throwing my athletes. It's like, hey, like you're close, but we want you here type of thing. It's not going to mean you're not going to be good, but if you want to get there, we need your strength levels to be in this range. So at least quantifies it to that sense.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure. Sure.
This might be going backwards, but when looking at that fly predictor, and you mentioned it early on about the 1% when we're talking about development, like, is that your own personal, or like you learned that over the years of just that 1%? Because I personally think that is good. And I hear some coaches like, no, I need you to get 3, 4, 5%. I just kind of want to know where that 1% came from.
I to be honest, I don't remember where I can tell you where I heard it from. It was from either the USATF or the UST3CA Coaches Association, Coaches Education. I just think we can all agree there's a point of diminishing return once you start getting to those upper echelons of elite track and field. So I think if you're hearing coaches saying they want 2, 3, 4%, it might be from a club level where people are developing and that sort of thing. But if you're getting 5% out of someone that's running 10-0, I mean, that's going to be a world record. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think there's a couple ways to think of it. So to answer your question, I just think the 1% is kind of the common denominator, if you will, as far as from like an elite standpoint. But yeah, if you're doing more than 1%, that's great. But I think once you do get to that certain point, the 2, 3, 4, 5% isn't really feasible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This stuff is gold. I really have to digest this, but this is really good stuff.
Yeah, offline, I'll send you guys the full one with all my weeks so you guys can see all the stuff. So then clicking over to the next one where it says our micro examples. So like I said, Rain Rider, he's my ace. He's been my mentor since day one. So quick backstory. I was teammates with Brian Clay at Azusa Pacific back in the early 2000s. Raina was one of his coaches for the combined events, and Brian was a gold medalist in Beijing and silver medalist in Athens. So that's how I got into coaching the jumps and combined events. Quick tangent. I told this on Cunningham's podcast, but basically, he asked me, with me having a football and sprint background, how come I didn't go into the sprints? And Raina goes, I'll save you 10 minutes of heartache. The world doesn't need another sprint coach. He goes, learn the jumps. You got a good eye, learn the combined events, and it'll work out. And obviously, thank goodness it worked out. But so you can see the date on this. It said August 8th, 2020. So back then, that was middle of lockdown COVID. I was still living in Miami, and Raina had his pro group training in Jacksonville. So I would drive up every week, go hang out, and just watch. You know what I mean? Just pick his brain. So these mesocycle weeks are examples of literally almost what I do in general prep and fall training. I mean, this stuff is gold. It's just, you got your acceleration development day, you got your metabolic day, mobility, circuits, hills, all that sort of stuff. And so it's just really trying to be creative with what you do and don't have. I think one of my favorite things about being here in Arkansas now is we have hills. I haven't had a hill since I worked at UCLA, you know, so it's just being able to bound, just run. And we have 3 different ones. And depending on the name, it affects the reaction and how big the eyes of the guys get, which hill we're going to for the day. But it's a game changer. And I mean, we can talk about that as far as just from a training standpoint. Like even to this time of year, I still have my guys hit the hill every once in a while. Just to touch on it, just from a speed development and just that standpoint. And if we do get to it next to it, O's, like one of the things I've learned from Raina is that, and not even naming schools or training groups or that sort of thing, where you can hear stories of just the crazy amount of volume that coaches have men doing when you really shouldn't do that. That's something you want to do with the women's team. So kind of going back to having only coached men now, I only have to put my one hat on just from a training perspective, just because physiologically you're going to coach men a little bit different than you are women, you know? So it's just a whole other thing. So let me see. So skipping ahead to what I sent you guys. So week 5. So this would have been 5 weeks into our fall training. So halfway through general prep, and you can see Mondays always are themes for just acceleration development, just hurdle hops, med ball throws, in-place jumps, a little bit of bounds, and then you can start to see what I like to do is you can see from just the distances of the runs and just the volume, it's not a ton, but I'm a big believer in you can really get the training effect you're looking for by playing with the rest. So this doesn't look like much, 4x120, 4x90, 4x60, but when that minute goes off, they're literally on the line going. And so, and I tell them, I don't care how fast you get through the run, whistle goes, your butt's moving, type of a thing. And it's interesting just seeing how the capacity work and the stuff you get done from that. It's awesome. Next day, you can see on Tuesday, a little bit of tech intro. So I'm also a big believer in, even though it's general prep, you still want to touch a little bit on some of the technical events. Even if it's something as simple as like when it says rudiment, that's just like if you took those old agility ladders for football, just foot contacts, rigid, moving everything through, bounding, that sort of thing. You can see high jumpers, mat drills, alternating bounce with triple jumpers. We do weighted vest type stuff. And then as we get deeper into the fall, I'll send them to the hill with the weighted vest, and we're doing stuff up and down the hill with the vests on the hills. So do that sort of part. Wednesday is always our recovery day. Like most schools, I'm sure we got our chiro, chiro, acupuncture, dry needling, you name it, that they get it, massages, that sort of thing. Thursday they come back to some tempo runs on our intramural field. No, and that's the other thing too. For those first 8 weeks, I don't let them touch the track. We're all on the grass. We're lucky enough to where we're actually on grass. There's a debate on the rubber granule fields, depending on the density of the rubber, if that actually can cause shin issues sometimes, depending on how soft it is. So that could be a debate for another time. And then skip into Friday. That's our hill day. So what I like to do different, if you look at it, I learned this from Coach Bush, rest in peace, from UCLA. So when I was at UCLA, Coach Bush would kind of hang out on Mondays and Wednesdays, bring his walker out and do some stuff. And kind of going back to what I said before earlier with some of the guys, I like to do timed runs. I don't put a cone. So it's just like, okay, I want 4 at 20 seconds, go. And it's interesting from a psychological standpoint, not that the guys don't want to get beat, but they know that on the first run, they got to here. Run number 2, they're like, okay, I got to get there. Run number 3, they get there. Then you go back the next week and they blast it the first time. They're looking around, they're like, well, this is kind of easy. So I don't know if there's any like science to it, but I just feel like when you tell them the time to go, they just go. And I've found they've actually gotten more volume out of just running for time versus running for, oh, there's 80. I'm just going to fall through the line at 80. You know what I mean? So again, just one of those things I've gleaned over the years. I feel like that helps out a lot.
I like that.
Okay, so let me see what I got next. Week 10. So week 10. Okay, so on this one, it jumps into specific prep. And so I won't get too detailed. You guys can kind of read through it. But now you can see we're starting to get into proper practices where contrast sled, like I mentioned before, huge on contrast sled runs. We have 1080s, we have the sleds, but keeping it old school with the sleds, just sled runs, looking at posture. When I go from the flat or from the excels, from the blocks, just the same things, making sure they're pushing out. And I mentioned before, like with the long and triple jumpers, I love for them to get on the runway, but I do not let them get on the runway if the pushes look like crap on the flat runs after the sleds. Because again, I don't want to bring bad rhythm or bad stuff coming over there where they're just either getting huge bounding or if they're spinning out the back. It's just, again, the rehearsal I talked about before, I really want to get to in that mastery. So usually at this time of the year, even though they're doing what I call long jump rhythm approach runs, I'm more focusing on them getting to their check mark or figuring out what their check mark is and then visually seeing what that 45, 46 feet looks like. So they just run through the board, not worrying about popping up. So it's getting that rehearsal of like, okay, and you guys know our runways here are ridiculous, right? It's a cheat code. Like it's anyone in the country will tell you this is probably one of the best places to jump, but so we get to practice on it. But that being said, is just going from the sled pulls, flat 30s. If I think they look good, I'll put them on the runway and just making sure they're working through those gears through their first 6 and then getting to my check and then just throttling down. But it's that visual of just getting used to seeing what that board looks like coming through at that speed. So that's my big one for the fall. Usually at this point, I think we're starting to get close to me letting them do just like 6 or 8 step, just easy jumps. I can send some videos if it helps, but Coach Fisher, Jimmy Fisher, if you guys don't follow him, he does a really good job of posting videos of just like kind of getting to see behind the curtain a little bit. And so one of the things I like doing early in the fall is with the mini hurdles is having the long jumpers just do an easy 10-step pop-up, setting the hurdles up, and I can send the distances and you can put it in your chat or whatever. But setting up the penultimate, obviously it's not going to be out at 2 or 220 because it's from a lower velocity, but spreading those hurdles out plus or minus 2 meters, 15 to 230. So it's close to what the stride length would be, but working those max V mechanics, getting ready to jump. So when they go push off that penultimate, that flat I talked about before, that flat penultimate, and then hitting a good pop up. I don't let them land. It's just making them move through the takeoff with those low amplitudes. So a little bit of stuff on that. The high jumpers, I don't know if I have it on here, but I'll mention it. I'm a real big proponent of, are you guys familiar with what S turns are for high jumpers? I'm sure you've seen curved runs, right? Where they just curve and they run like curves. S runs is the same idea, but they're running from lane 1 they'll turn in 7, come all the way across, turn in lane 2. It's really getting them to understand their shoulders and body position running into the curve, but more importantly, running out of it. Because obviously, if they're running a curve and high jump, they're not going to tippy toe coming out of their curve to try to jump up the bar. You know what I mean? So, just working on change of position, motions, that sort of thing.
About how far do you have them run? You know.
So, what I'll do, just to give them kind of a visual, I'll put cones every 20 meters and just tell them just roughly to try to work 4 turns in the straightaway.
Right.
So that way, because like sometimes you'll get them and they'll run like 5 little zigzags, but it's just trying to put 20 just so visually they can see just the understanding the accelerating in and the accelerating turning out. Let's see what I have at the end of the week. Friday, back up on the hill. And then Saturday, once we start, before we lose outside of the weather, I just love grass runs. Grass runs are good, barefoot, help those fake, like going back to keeping those feet, muscles, tendons, all the good, and helping hopefully not get plantar fasciitis and all the other good stuff, On that, let me see if I can skip ahead a little bit to more fun stuff.
While you're looking, I'll tell our audience that you've referenced Jeremy Fisher a couple times, and Jeremy Fisher, he's going to be episode 15, so he's going to be he will have his episode would have premiered a few weeks before yours.
Cool. No, he's awesome. He's been extremely good to me. You can harp on USATF for this. So back in the day, so this is probably like 2011 or 2010. USATF used to do something that was called Emergent Elite, and they would actually identify up and coming coaches, fly you out to the old Chula Vista Training Center, and let Fisher and those guys put you through the paces. So I was in one of those earlier classes, and ever since then, him and Raina have been my ace. And it's funny because him and Raina have a very competitive relationship. So I joke it's like my 2 divorced parents going to my baseball game, even though they don't want to talk to each other. But but it's been pretty funny with those 2 guys. Okay, so skipping ahead, you guys mentioned you want to see some competition stuff. Okay, so I skipped ahead to Microcycle 21. That was actually the week of our big Razorback Invitational. So for me, I don't know how deep you guys want to get into this, but have you guys had any discussions before with any other guests as far as like pre-meet, neuro lifts, timing of that sort of thing, or anything along those lines?
Not in any not in specifics for sure.
Gotcha. Okay, so for full disclosure, for me, this is how I've done it. It's sort of an exact science to an extent, but I feel like high school coaches could glean from this. So how do I say this? You guys already know if you do a hard CNS day. So say, for example, you're hitting it hard on Monday. I'm assuming California dual meets are still on Thursday or no?
Some are Thursday.
Yeah. Thursdays and some are Wednesdays.
Most of them are Thursday, though.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's just say for the purpose of this, it's Thursday. So most times, the last time you would hit it hard would be Monday. So they have that 48 to 72 hours for the bodies to rest, to recoup, and ready to go. So for me, I'm a huge proponent of, unless I've seen otherwise from my athletes, I always have 72 hours in between hard, like legit banging it, right? So let me back. And one other thing I don't know if we talked about, in the fall at Arkansas, we lift on Monday and Thursday morning, and after practice on Saturday. We can go back to that. So in season, I'm a big believer on the meets where we're not training through, we're actually trying to go get something done. And even when you guys mentioned championship circuit or championship season. So what I've learned, so for example, Scotty Vines, he prefers to do his neuro lift, like just quick bar movement, a couple clean snatches, real quick, like twitchy type stuff with some, paired it with box jumps and that sort of thing. He likes doing that 72 hours out from competition. So if he's jumping Saturday, he lifts Wednesday. He's completely off Thursday. We'll get treatment, light massage, that sort of thing. We'll have a light pre-meet on Friday, and he lights it up on on Saturday. For me, I'm an opponent. I don't like my guys jumping the day before meets. I'll let him do approaches. I'll let him do a couple like easy takeoffs, set bars at like 205 or 210, but I'm not out there letting him try to bang bars at like 220, 225 because you're not going to win the meet on Friday. I let him feel a couple impacts, but that's about it. Russ, on the other hand, if he's competing on Saturday, he wants to do nothing the day before the meet. He'll move around on Thursday, and he'll do his but he'll do his neuro lift also on Wednesday, 72 hours out. Gerard, on the other hand, he has a very speed power sprinting background. If he's jumping on Saturday, we'll do approaches and a couple pop-ups on Friday, and he'll lift on Thursday. And that's it. He'll have Wednesday off. So what I'm getting at is different people have different rest parameters for their nervous system, but I would caution anybody to do anything inside of 48 hours multiple times back to back, because that's a recipe for somebody to get hurt.
Yeah. So speaking of that, like with high school, you know, they have their invitationals or their meets. You know, their meets on Saturdays. They have their meets on Thursdays. So if they're coming off a Thursday, Saturday, you know, a lot of times Monday. If they're deep in the season, Monday might be kind of like a recovery day, and Tuesday might be the harder day. But then you still have the meet on Thursday, so it's like 48 hours versus 72. So how would you use that, or would you?
Very good question. So I glanced over it a little bit, and I don't think I included it for my outdoor ones. So what I like to do, so you probably tell I like working backwards from Saturday. So for me, if it's an off week, if it's an off week or if it's an on week, Saturday is always my special endurance day. The reason I say that is because if it's Saturday, I can put them through a prescribed workout. If it's a meet, I don't care if you're a long jumper, you're a decathlete, or whatever, that's your hard workout day. You just happen to have a uniform on that day. For us, like obviously at our meets where we're trying to actually go get something done, that's a different thing. We'll have a little bit of a different lead-in type of a thing. But for me, for my group, Saturday is always our hard day. Like that'll be, you're going to be laid out on that day. And then depending on where we're at in the season, if, say, for example, it's that same example of a non-competing week on Saturday, Thursday is our max velocity day, Monday is our acceleration development day, and then Tuesday be something metabolic, Wednesday be that active recovery like I was talking about, Friday would just be a warm-up, just a general strength circuit, and then we bang it again on Saturday with some of the lactate and the special endurance type stuff.
So real quick, Coach, so how would you approach it? All right, so this will be posted after the California State meet. However, you know, you can have the California State meet, you have prelims on Friday evening or afternoon, evening, or whatever, and then you have the finals on Saturday evening. How would you approach it in California, like the state meet week, as you enter your training going into that week? You know, most likely Thursday is going to be the travel day, but then and then also compared to the other states, like here in Texas, where the state meet would be either on a Friday or a Saturday. You already mentioned how you would do it on Saturday, but how would you do it if it was Friday? If Thursday was the travel day? How would you do that?
So using the California example, remind me real quick, the Masters meets are on Friday in California, correct?
No, it's on Saturday. It was just on Saturday.
Oh, they're on Saturday now?
Yeah.
Ooh, they used to be on Friday. Okay, so if it was that construct, Sunday would be off, Monday would be an easy active recovery, Tuesday would be a light CNS day just to touch it, and then Hayes in the barn. There's no special workout between Tuesday and Friday that's going to get him going. You know what I mean? It's like that's the real difficult part about the championship time of the year, because when the lights come on, you got to go. But at the same time, too, if you keep going to that well, that's where it gets difficult. So to answer your question, I'd be very deliberate trying to time up at least 48 hours between bouts if you absolutely had to do something. But then to answer your question on the Friday, Saturday, that would be no different than a 2-day meet, prelim, and a final. That's the way I would approach it, because obviously you're going to want that big cue for Friday, so you got to let it loose, and then on Saturday you just got to go out there and compete.
So basically, Monday would be somewhat of a
metabolic
recovery, like tempo type day. But then, so you wouldn't risk it to like get after and be like, "Hey, I need one more speed session." Do you think that you're tapped out as far as like improving your speed within that week? Because I know of some coaches that are going to do that this week.
Oh yeah, I know. The way I would, in my opinion, and how I've done it in the past, if I know my group's healthy and we're going on that example, if they competed on Saturday, took Sunday off, Monday was a lighter metabolic day, I would do something maybe, okay, so let's use a 400-meter guy for an example. I might do a broken 400 or like a 300-minute rest, 100-meter all out, but I would make sure that 300 was at like 90%. Like you're not running, I say WFO, you can guess what the F stands for. So, but I would do something along the lines of where it's not max effort, but in that 90 range in like a 1 rep type of situation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think if you do anything more than that, you're just playing with, in my opinion, I think you're playing with fire. And like for me, in the combined events world, if it was a decathlon, and Will already knows this, like most combined guys, our last really difficult workout is 10 days from the competition. And then we sprinkle things in leading up to it where you're just touching on things, but that's a different setup just because it's a different it's a different animal. But going back to what I said before is if I know like using Mount Sac, for example, where the team opened up, I knew we were opening up there. I did a 10-day lead in with my group knowing that was the last time we were competing for 6 weeks until we went to LSU before we went to SECs. So that just is where the planning comes in. Because most of the time, if you look at, I don't know if we want to get into this or you can, if you want to debate it, like TFers can be a blessing and a curse because if you're researching coaches or researching teams, you're like, golly, those guys compete a lot. But for us, since we're home all the time, we just use it as a practice because we don't have to travel. You know what I mean? And so, but from a combined event standpoint, I'm a big proponent of a 10-day lead-in. But to the example you had said, if you felt compelled that you needed to get one more in, I think you are right. You don't want to sit from Saturday to the following Friday. But I would just say Tuesday, that gives you 72 hours out. You can touch on it, but not tax them.
If you touch on it, would you touch on it with the 1080 or Apex or any type of contrast?
I wouldn't. No, don't. Me personally, no. I know people that would, and I've heard a couple of stories that are probably going to come out in a little bit of a couple universities that did that. That's all I'm going to say. But I mean, let me take that back. If I was doing, the only contrast I would do would be a light pull, a light resisted with blocks. I wouldn't do an assisted in between them.
Okay.
Okay, Coach. So can we? We'll probably wrap it up with this one, but can you give us a little bit overview of like how you would train the combined events athletes? We one of the things that I've been preaching on here is how that's a whole like opportunity, for like a better term, for like states like California where they don't we don't contest it, but for the athletes to start thinking about that and those opportunities to do that in college, because like there's kids who go to college who've never heard of and don't even know it exists until they get there. But it's a great opportunity to earn scholarship opportunities and things like that. And for the people who are actively pursuing that and the coaches who are actively training kids for that group, like high school coaches specifically, how would you go about, or how do you go about training your combined events athletes?
Well, if I get off on a tangent, reel me back in. So I would go about it this way. Kind of going back to the body types like I talked about before. If that'd be number one, because again, it's my fear, and I hope I don't jinx it saying it, is that with these roster limitations, I think the combined events and some of the throws are going to feel it a little bit, just because I wouldn't call it necessarily their niche events, but they're kind of niche events outside the upper ranks. If you look at TFers this year, other than your daughter's group, her peers group on the other side, there's not you can probably count on two hands the schools that take the combined event series. So that's one. However, it's a huge point maker, and head coaches are very aware of it at the conference level. So if you decide you're going to go to a school where that's a thing that if that's what they want to do at the conference level, what I would recommend to either a coach, athlete, that sort of thing, there's probably 3 events you're going to want to at least have dabbled in to a pretty good level if you want to be considered for it. Obviously, me, when I was recruiting young ladies for the HEP, you have to be able to hurdle, you have to be able to high jump, and you have to be able to sprint. 9 times out of 10, we can teach you to throw. That's the one. On the men's side, preferably that they hurdle, preferably they have some sort of experience with the pole vault, and if they don't, they need to be a high-level long jumper because that translates pretty well to the pole vault. And for me, I actually like seeing the longer sprinters. Like, are they a longer hurdler? Are they a quarter miler? Because then that translates up. But I think I know Petros would back me up on this. The combined events, I think coaches make a huge mistake training their athletes for the 7th or 10th event. That's one aerobic event. The other 6 or 9 are straight speed power. If you're not training those speed power events and they don't have the horsepower for it, don't waste your time. You're gonna waste a lot of time. Like, there's a young man, love him to death on my team. He won't come back. Cooper Williams. He's a 7'2" high jumper. He wanted to do the deck. Coached him on down to 6'11" because he put on 15 pounds of good weight and that sort of thing. So now I'm trying to do I don't know if you guys remember the name Derek Druin, who was at Indiana, gold medalist in Rio in the high jump, but he was also, I think, a 5,900 point heptathlete indoor. So at Indiana, he did the hep inside and high jump outside. So right now, Coop, he's jumping over 7 feet again. So just getting him back into that type of mode. And I think that's where I was going with that is jumps and combined event coaches sometimes fall in love with like turning good athletes into decathletes when they should not do that.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but at UCLA, in my opinion, I've told Isaiah Holmes out of high school, California, he jumped 7+ out of high school and was a 25-foot plus long jumper, phenomenal athlete who knew how to hurdle, but was very fragile. My first year there, I was adamantly opposed to him doing it. He didn't. I left, and then he was hurt for 3 years. No, I don't know what happened, no fault of his own. I just know that they're like, oh, and I don't blame him, but with him being so enthusiastic and just he was one of those guys like, I'm going to do this type thing. You know what I mean? And then ended up being hurt for 3 years. He calls me and he's like, hey, want to run it back? I'm like, yeah, if you forget those other 8 events. He's like, all right, cool. deal. And then it worked out, you know, but to answer your question, I think you have to be careful with the good athletes because they're going to think they can do that, but learning how to throw a disc, pole vault, all the other things that go along with it, it's a time investment. And so it's just, I think there are a lot of mid-major schools that will invest time into that. And there's a lot of good coaches out there that can do it. Yeah. But if you're looking for, like I said, there's level to everything. If you're looking for the upper echelon stuff, find one event you can be elite at and go be part of a team and go be part of something that's great, you know?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Coach. Well, Coach Jarvis, we appreciate you.
Hope that was good.
We appreciate you. Thank you for your time sitting down with us tonight and just giving us a really good glimpse of, you know, how it is to be a D1 coach, elite coach in the SEC, you know, and just pulling back that curtain, the elite jumps and athletic development. So I'm sure our listeners and our viewers will definitely appreciate it.
Of course.
And this has definitely been one of those conversations where the coaches, the athletes, parents, you know, they're going to walk away with something valuable. Because
and also too, and I say this every time I'm on, feel free to give my email. Like, I don't mind helping and answering questions when I can, just because one of the worst things that happened to me when I was coming up, other than Raina and Jeremy, it was like reaching out to people. And I mean, I know how busy I am, but if I have the time just to respond or help with anything, truly send me an email. I'll get to you eventually, and I don't mind responding to stuff.
And where also can the viewers contact you?
Email is just my name, ROB, the letter J, at UARC, and then my Instagram is Jarvosier, like Pastor Jarvosier. It's JARVOISIER.
Hey, everybody, that's Coach Jarvis right there.
Thanks, guys.
But also, please be sure to subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And for myself, Coach Will Humphreys, Anthony Lewis, this is Beyond the Blocks, where we bring you conversations that go beyond the performances. And we'll catch you again next time.